Ooh, I think I know. Welcome to episode 94 of the Valley Sports Talk podcast. I feel like going into these episodes, I never actually know what episode we're about to go on to, but then I just press record. I press record anyways and have to check my phone before we even start talking about what episode we're on. But yeah, we're back for episode 34, 94.
There we go.
34 was a
Very
while
cool.
ago. Yeah, we took us about a week and a half to get this episode out, but we're back. So the second round series are uh just starting. There's what, two games in?
Yeah, well, yeah, we
Two
got one
games
game.
in by the time we're recording this. A game of it is about to start in 15 minutes.
Yeah, game two.
Game two of the Carolina Rangers series. But yeah, um, on today's episode, we're going to go through. We'll give a quick debrief of each series, and Brand, we're gonna go through each team that got eliminated. We're gonna look at their cap situation, give a little things on what they should do this offseason, and then to wrap it up, we are going to go through our round two predictions. I am keeping my predictions the same, even though majority of my picks that I picked to go to round three lost game one, but I'm gonna stick to those, just acting like it never happened. Not that I don't think that they can't come back. But yeah, I'm just gonna stick to it because I still think they can come back.
No, I think that's a good idea. I'll do the same. I
Anyway,
will do this.
so last time we talked, all the series were still going on. I know we talked about a couple that were probably over. So we won't talk about those ones. We'll talk about the ones that sort of got into uh game sevens. There's only two game sevens in round one. We can talk about those later, but let's talk about Colorado and Winnipeg first.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a good. It was. I mean, I think it was a closer series than five games. But to be honest, just Colorado looked like the better team most of the time, and they couldn't get a save out of Connor Hellebuck, which again, I think we said last episode wasn't totally his fault, as they were getting bombarded with shots. But we kind of thought goaltending would be a problem for Colorado, but they just kind of scored their way past it.
Yeah, other than round one, your give finally got his bearings under him. And yeah, I think um this Winnipeg offense just didn't come to play like they did in the regular season. They were actually a good offensive team in the regular season, and they just could not, after game one where they put up seven, they just could not find the back of the net for the rest of the game. And you can only expect so much from Connor Hellebuck if you're only scoring 1 to 2 goals a game. Um, did he lose them a series like you said? No, I don't think this solely is on Connor Hellebuck. He's going to be named the Vezina Trophy winner most likely.
Yeah.
Did he have an off series? Sure. But I don't think that this is solely based on Hellebuck's performance.
I feel like we say this like kind of like the Leafs. We just say this about the Jets every year is they look so good going into the playoffs, but they can never get it done. I don't
For
know what
sure.
it is. But kind of looking at their team, um they don't really have much moving pieces this summer. They have Tyler Toffoli, who's a UFA, Sean Monahan, a UFA, and Cole Perfetti, who's an RFA going into next season. Um, on defense, kind of some bottom pairing guys. Dylan DeMello and Brendan Dillon are UFAs, and then Laurent Bossoin is also a UFA.
Hmm.
Any guys you see them? Obviously, they're bringing back Cole Perfetti. He's an RFA. He's young. They're going to bring that back.
Hmm.
Uh, any of the UFAs you think they
Uh, I
back?
actually like DeMello. He actually played top pair with Morrissey for the majority of the year. Obviously Morrissey being more offensive oriented, he's sort of like that defensive. He's kind of similar to an Ilya Lyubushkin, but he's a bigger body. Playing with
Mhm.
Morgan Riley, where Morgan Riley is more offensive oriented. I think that DeMello is going to be a hot commodity on this market. He's a big defenseman that can play defense in your zone. I know that's what you need from, or what you usually hope from a defenseman, but I think that um, a lot of teams are going to want his services. As for Monahan and Toffoli, I think both those guys were brought in as rentals. I don't see either of them coming back unless it's for um, a, a, a deal that makes sense for Winnipeg. And I don't think I know Toffoli's 32, Monahan might just be 30. I don't really think they fit this Winnipeg team going forward. So I think both of those guys leave. Obviously, I think Perfetti comes back. Brossoit had a good year backing up Hellebuck, but I mean, you have some guys in the farm system, including a guy we watched a bit in DiVincentis. I know he had a off year this year with North Bay. But he's going to be cracking for an AHL spot next year because he's aged out in the OHL, and I think they have a couple guys that they can sort of rely on to back up Hellebuck for the next couple of years. So I say Brossoit goes other way too.
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything you said. I think Brossoit played himself out of Winnipeg just because he played so well. His cap is going to go up. And Hellebuck next year does go into his contract extension. He's making 6 mil right now. He makes 8.5 next year. So
Yeah,
um
him and Scheifele's extensions kick in this season.
yeah, so you're probably if he's making 8.5 mil, you don't want to tie too much money into your goaltending. So they're probably gonna look for a cheap backup. But
Mhm. I
other than
also
that,
heard that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I
oh,
heard the Jets are going to look to shop Nikolai Ehlers this summer, which I think does make sense. I don't think he really fits their team looking forward. I know they're sort of building around guys like Iafallo, Gabe Vilardi, obviously Scheifele's a big part there, Kyle Connor, guys like that. So I have heard word that they will be shopping around Ehlers, and I think a
yeah,
lot of I think any competent team will try to get a deal done with him.
yeah, for sure. He's got 1 more year at 6 mil. He's the third highest paid forward, and he kind of shuffles between second and third line winger. So I could see a trade happening there for sure. What other team you want to talk about?
We can go to the next series. We can talk about Canadian team move on. One of the most boring game sixes of the whole series. Both teams looked like they were a men's league team out there. Nobody could make passes. Nobody looked like they wanted to go up the middle of the ice. It was kind of just like a dump and chase game, but eventually the Canucks found the back of the net, and I'm gonna butcher his name, but the rookie goalie, the rookie goalie, I'll say that. Kind of stole
Um,
the show.
oh yeah,
It's Sladovis or something. I don't know. I have no idea how to pronounce it, to be honest.
yeah. It's
But
something.
he's kind of the storyline coming out of this. Um,
Sheloffs.
Sheloff,
That's how
thank you. He's
Sheloffs.
kind of the main storyline coming out of this series for the Canucks and heading into their series with the Oilers, which we'll talk about a bit later.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty good series. Again, this was a pretty boring series, but I think that might actually help Vancouver going into the next series because we kind of all thought this was going to be a breeze. Um, but Nashville made them fight and losing their top and losing Demko, like the Canucks really had to fight, which is good to learn in the playoffs, especially a young team like this that doesn't have much playoff experience. Learning how to battle and get through a series against a tough defensive team like Nashville is kind of a pretty big step you need to learn in the playoffs, and to get that so early that might help them in the future. But they're definitely going to need to figure out offense because not only were they not scoring, but they weren't putting up many shots on Saros either. And the farther you get into the playoffs, the better the teams are defensively, the better the goalies are, and so they're gonna have to figure that part out of the game. But I think them having to grind a series like that is super beneficial.
Yeah, I don't remember how many games I said it was going to happen in, but this is expected. I think that Nashville isn't really a boring team, but they're a really mid team. They don't have anything really that jumps off the page at you other than Roman Yossi Saros, and Forsberg. Other than that, they're not really that exciting. But that being said, they did go on a pretty incredible run just to get into the playoffs. But yeah, we'll talk about the Vancouver Edmonton series coming up. Um, Run me through the Predators, what they look like going forward.
So it's not too much is happening again with this team either. Zucker is a free agent. Anthony Beauvillier is a free agent. On D, they got Tyson Barrie and Alex Carrier. And then in goalie, sorry, they have Lankinen as a free agent who I think we all think will leave, and Askarov will come up as the backup.
Mhm.
But out of like Barrie, Carrier, Beauvillier, Zucker, do you see any of them coming back?
No, I honestly
I don't
don't.
either. I don't either.
Basically, based off the fact that Carey was a bottom pairing defenseman, and those are pretty not easy to find, but not hard to find at the same time. Tyson Barrie was scratched for this entire series, except for the one game that Luke Shen was sick. And then Zucker and Beauvillier were both brought in as rental players. Um, and I don't think either of them really resigned. I do. You mentioned Lincoln's a free agent. I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden, we see maybe a UC Saros trade this offseason. I wouldn't be surprised if they
Yeah.
give us if they give us Scar off the reins in Nashville and sort of maybe even re-sign Kevin Lincoln to back up Askarov or sort of be a tandem, like bringing Askarov slowly into the fold. But they drafted this guy really high overall for a reason. I think you can
He's
only keep
tearing up
him.
the AHL in the
I was about to
playoffs
say
right
you can only keep him down in the AHL for so long before he demands a roster spot or he should demand a roster spot. So I think it's time to sort of throw that narrative out there that UC Soros could be on the move. He could not be on the move. It might be a Skarov who maybe is a young goalie that gets traded. We because UC Soros isn't that old. He's only like 26.
UC
Um,
Services 29.
Whew, okay, he's been in the league a bit longer than I thought. He's 29. Still, he's right in his prime. He's a
Yep,
top
yeah.
the top I'd argue top seven goalie, six goalie in the
Only
league.
making 5 mil.
So yeah, he's a totally tradable contract, and you got a Scarab coming off. This national team, if they do trade Saros, I could see them going into a sort of semi-rebuild. I don't think you can really completely rebuild with Roman Yossi and Forsberg there because Roman Yossi's in his early 30s. I think Forsberg is probably two. I know you probably have age up there right now.
I just
Um,
pulled it off.
it's okay.
But early, yeah.
Anyways, but I don't think unless you're going to completely blow it up and trade those guys away, I don't think you can go into a complete rebuild. But I think that they might go through one or two seasons of just sort of being in that purgatory stage, kind of like where like they're just barely getting, not making the playoffs. They're just barely getting in and getting bounced around one as they sort of develop their team.
Yeah, we're gonna see what direction they want to go because, like you said, they could definitely go into that middling tier team, but they do
I
have a
already think
ton
they
of
are sort of a middling tier, but like they're a
yeah.
higher middling
Sure.
tier.
They're a really good defensive team, and they have a lot of cap this year. If they can go out and find a good goal scorer, um, a good first line center goal scorer, I think they could be a pretty dangerous team. Obviously they're in a pretty tough division, but um, if they can find a good goal scorer in free agency, they have tons of money to work with and pair them up with the defensive team Nashville already has. I could see them being competitive again next
Also,
year.
we just were told that San Jose has won the 2024 NHL draft lottery.
They win it. That's
Yep.
good. Where's Utah picking?
Um,
Have they come out with that yet?
Chicago
They deserve
second, Anaheim third.
So they went fourth then, because I think the lowest that Utah could fall is four.
Yeah, Utah would have four.
You know what though? Good for San Jose. When you're that bad, I know the chances are the same if you're last place by a point or last place by 20, but this is a team that needed that badly. So good for them. They deserved it for sure.
That's
That's something to look forward to.
Utah. Utah got six.
Oh, jeez. They
I think
fell.
I think that's what were they not? I don't know if that's where they came in.
I think new teams come in at 3 or 4. So
I don't know if they're considered a new team.
you think they just got where Arizona finished?
I think they just got where Arizona finished.
Okay, that could
Yeah,
be the
Utah
case.
has six. It goes San Jose, Chicago, Anaheim, Columbus, Montreal, Utah, Ottawa, Seattle, Calgary, New Jersey, Buffalo, Philly, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, but it goes to San Jose, Detroit, and St. Louis.
So it seems like it was a
I
pretty
think I don't think a single
un
team moved.
yeah, that seems like a pretty uneventful lottery.
It's
Oh well, that
very
happens
uneventful.
sometime. That
Wow.
happens.
Okay. Anyways,
Interesting.
back to what were we talking about? Nashville?
I think we wrapped up Nashville.
Yeah, I think so too. Um,
I think the Nashville fans will be happy.
I think they are too. If there's any Nashville fans watch this. Moving on. Do we just have the two game seven series that we haven't talked about? I know we talked about the other series last one. Am I missing a series?
I think I think that's good.
Perfect. Let's move
That's it.
on to the defending champ. Oh, I just absolutely just messed up my mic. Sorry, everyone. The defending
That'll
champs,
be
who were defeated in game seven by the Dallas Stars. It was a great game seven. It was a great series. Not the way I expected to end after. Well, I had Dallas winning the series at the start, but after they went down 2-0, not them. If you tell me they're gonna win the five. Oh my God, sorry. Words are tough tonight. If they you were going to tell me they're going to win the next four of five, I would have just written it off and say that Vegas is going to move on. But Dallas shows why they were the top team in the West this year. Gutsy performance to get to Game 7. What were your sort of thoughts on the series?
I know we're going to talk about the series here, but for a second, I just want to mention Dallas. They have the chance to have potentially the most iconic Stanley Cup run in history. If you think about it, if they win the
Crazy.
Stanley Cup,
They have the
they
hardest
could
path, but
they could potentially go, yeah, they could go Vegas, Colorado, like Edmonton,
and
and
then
then
the
the
winner of the
winner of the
East.
East, which would be which would be
Crazy.
fun.
That'd be a tough run to the Stanley
It's
Cup.
nuts. But about that series, yeah, that would be insane. I
Yeah,
think I'm
sorry.
lagging a little bit. I think I'm
Quickly
behind,
back
but
to this. First time since 2010, the draft order went completely unchanged.
damn, okay. Yeah, that's crazy. Doesn't happen very often. But about the series, yeah, I mean, scrappy by Dallas to come back. I know uh to take games 3 and 4 both in Vegas when you're down 2-0 is very impressive, especially in that arena. That's hard to play in. But they just kind of stuck to their game. Games 1 and 2 were pretty close, so they must have just kept confident, kept with their game, and stayed with it. For Vegas, I don't think it's anything to be too disappointed about. I'm sure the fans are right now being up 2-0, but it was a good team. It was a hard fought battle. Game 7 was super close. I mean, all the games were super close. Your guys did look pretty banged up. Like Mark Stone definitely wasn't 100% in this series. He didn't look like himself. The team just didn't have a chance to gel that much. And I mean, I don't, yeah, I think it's just a good series, and you can't be upset losing to a team that could win the Stanley Cup pretty easily. Not easily,
Yeah.
but like a lot of
Um,
people think they,
yeah, I think it was I think that almost Vegas pulled a Rangers from last year and they almost made too many moves. Almost
yeah.
too many cooks in the kitchen. Um, and a lot of those guys, like you bring in Hannafin, and Hannafin was playing first power play. What does that say about, Shea Theodore, or Petro, like those guys were there the whole year. And going off that point, a lot of those guys, a lot of their sort of star players didn't really come to play other than Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel is probably next to Wyatt Johnson, who I'll talk about in a second. Jack Eichel is probably the second best player in this whole series. Um, and then Jake Ottinger made saves when he had to. He was a bit shaky the first two games, but I thought games 3 through 7, he was, the Jake Ottinger of old. We've seen him sort of come into this playoff mode before. Going back to Vegas, Marchessault didn't look he like you said, he didn't look healthy. He didn't look like the Marchessault. He is a UFA this year. I'm interested to see what happens with him. Turtle didn't I know he spent a lot of the year on the IR, but he wasn't really the player that he was in the past. Barbashev did not do what he did last year, guys like that. But I think it does come down to honestly maybe too many moves were made and not enough games were played together where the chemistry could go in. But let's talk about Wyatt Johnston.
Nuts.
He's
Nuts.
he is a player, a young player turning into a superstar in this series. Like I think he was already a star after the year he had, but I think that he is getting on like top 20, top 15 type player level where like there's not many guys in this league that at this moment in time, being how young he is and how good he already is, that I would take over him.
Yeah, he the moment doesn't bother him, that's for sure. He comes to play. They're down 2-0. Um, he didn't really have any points in the first two games, but he really came alive when they needed him most. So much so that they moved him up to the first line, moved Pavelski out of the first line, who, as we've talked about
Didn't do
before,
what Joe Pavelski usually does in the playoffs.
I know, but as we know, Joe Pavelski, since coming into the NHL, has the most playoff points out of any active NHL player, above Crosby, above Ovechkin, above people like that. So to knock someone down with that pedigree, you got to be playing really well. And Johnson just stepped up every single time Dallas needed a goal, he scored. Every time they were on the power play, it was like an automatic Wyatt Johnson goal. They were all nice. They weren't even playoff style goals. They were just snipes. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, and this was against, a Vegas team that has some giant defensemen back there. So
Yeah.
shifting into this Colorado team. This Colorado team is not defense core is not as big or as like bruiser as the Vegas one is. So if he can do that against Colorado, he is probably the biggest X factor in the series on why I guess Dallas will have a chance at beating Colorado. But yeah, um quickly about Joe Pavelski, I think the fact that they won in seven and he didn't do almost anything. Same with Roope Hintz. He had one goal in his empty netter. You know, he's
Yeah,
a guy that scored a lot of goals in the playoffs for Dallas last year. If these two guys can get going, you already have Wyatt Johnston going. You already have Miro Heiskanen going. You got Ottinger firing. You know, guys like Sagan had his chance. He just couldn't find the back of the net. You had your depth. Like Evgeny Dida, oh my God. Dadonov looked like their third best player at times out there. And, you know, he's a fourth liner. You know, Dallas has depth to do it. And I guess we'll talk about it in like a couple minutes when we get to the series predictions. But if Dallas can get these other guys going, they're going to be scary if they can get through Colorado.
yeah, Dallas is definitely the deepest team in the NHL, and they showed it through this series. Like you said, all their big guys, they were still productive in other ways, but they weren't scoring points, and it didn't even matter. Like and against a team like you said, Colorado, not too defensively orientated. Um, there might be a lot of goals incoming 1-0 game tonight, but I think that could be a
Yeah,
high.
1-0. Um, let's talk quickly about Vegas going forward. I know they have a lot of pretty, or I think they have a couple
They got a lot.
important UFAs.
They got a lot. They got Marchessault, UFA. They got Anthony Mantha,
Say what you
UFA.
want about him.
Yeah, he's not coming back. Um, Chandler Stevenson, UFA. Um, he is a centerman. They also have Carlson, Hurdle, and Jack Eichel as centerman, so we'll see about that. William Carrier, Michael Amadio, and then the only defensive free agent is Alec Martinez, but I've heard a lot of people saying he might call our quits.
Would
So,
100% see him calling it quits. You know, he's got three Stanley Cups. Great career for him. I know
yep.
he's 37 or 38, somewhere up there.
But he's
Um,
been through a lot.
he's been through a lot. He is one of those defensemen that was always been reliable, always a guy you wanted on your team. Going through their UFAs, they have a lot and not
With
much
no
cap
money.
space.
Yeah.
Um, so going through it, I think Marshall stays. I think Amadio was great in the series against Dallas. So I'd like to see him back. Chandler Stevenson, I don't think he comes back. I don't think you can sort of give him the price that he's gonna want. He's probably gonna want 4.5 to 5 mil. Like he's a decent player. And I
And
don't
they have
think
three centers better than him on
I
the
was about to
team.
say I don't think they can afford it, and I think they have that like depth is their best position depth for center is their best depth position wise. So I think Shannon Stevenson's gone. I'd like to see them bring Marshall back and Amadio. And then Carey is just sort of a throw-in. You know, he had a couple goals, or he had a goal or two in this series. But, you know, Vegas and another, even, I know he's not a free agent, but talking about the too many cooks in the kitchen, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Shea Theodore asked for a trade after they just got the Hanifin extension done. You know, he might honestly feel betrayed or like, where is my spot on this team now if you just brought in a left-handed defenseman that took my power play, you know? Something like that also gets money off the books for him to maybe sign. And I think they have decent depth at their defensive core.
They do got pretty good defensemen. They got two, four, six. They got eight on contract right now. We think Martinez is going to go. So they got seven, and they're all pretty good. You got Petro, Theodore, McNabb, Whitecloud, Nick Hague, Noah Hannafin, Ben Hutton. So
Yeah, those are all. I think
it's they're
yeah.
all NHL defensemen.
Uh-huh. Totally.
So one can definitely go. I do kind of agree with you. Obviously, I do think Mantha's gone. I think Chandler Stevenson's going to want too much money, and they already have that position. William Carrier, it's like it is what it is. Amadio seems to be electric. He
He
seems to be
seems
that
just like
guy.
a Vegas player, you know. He
Yeah,
seems like a
he is.
misfit that figured it out.
Yeah, he's a guy in the bottom six that you kind of want on your team. We'll see what he asks for. He's only making 760K right now, so we'll see what he asks
See what he
for.
wants, yeah.
The big one is Jonathan Marchessault. So obviously he's gonna want to. I think he wants to be there. He was an original pick by them, um, but he's only making 5 mil, and they don't have a lot of cap space. I wonder if he'll be asking for more than five. So
It'll be interesting to see what they do.
definitely interesting.
All right,
That's
let's move on to sorry.
Let's talk about the frickin' Leafs.
Let's talk about the frickin' Leafs. Breaks their hearts, or they broke the hearts of the Leafs Nation again after giving them hope coming back 3-1. I honestly thought they were gonna do it going into game seven. I thought they were gonna do it. After not having any faith being down 3-1, the second that they won those two games, like, oh my God, they are gonna do it. Boston's gonna blow 3-1 series leads 2 years in a row. Um, let's talk about Boston real quick. Obviously the guy Pasta finally came to play in game seven after being called out. A lot of people were like, why do you call it Pasta? But that's exactly the reason why you call Pasta out, is to get him going. Marchand was doing Marchand things. McAvoy was good for most of the series. I think he had an iffy game seven. Um, Lindholm had a iffy series, and then game seven he had a great game. I really like
Yeah,
that Lorai kid. He just came
their
up.
fourth line was really good.
Yeah, I was just about to say their third and fourth line were like their best two lines.
Yeah.
And they beat Toronto without sort of Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle, who are their one and two centers, without them really having a factor. And then obviously probably the MVP of the series, even though he didn't play all seven games, Jeremy Swayman. Outstanding work, just shutting down the Leafs in every way possible, and shutting down Florida last night as well.
Yeah, he looked good against Florida too. Yeah, this Boston team, we keep counting them out, but they keep going. They play. It doesn't matter the players. They just play Boston style hockey, and no matter what people want to say, like I'm pretty hard on Marner myself, but people saying that Marner didn't back check or that Samsonov could have got a stick on that. That's just two players who know what they're gonna do, and they know off that arena they're gonna get that bounce. Like
Yeah,
that's a
that's
set.
where the home.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can say Marner didn't skate, didn't follow, and he was puck watching, and you can say Samsonov could have poke checked that, but it's a split second. Like you're watching that in slow-mo. In real time, that's just two players who set a play and knew the bounce they were gonna get. It's a great goal. But
So I'll let you do most of the talking. I know they have a couple decently sized UFAs. Obviously, the core four, or as most people are calling them now, the fraud four on Twitter and stuff. What do the Leafs do moving forward? What is sort of you can't trade Nylander, can't trade Tavares with his cap hit. You don't trade Matthews. You just don't. He's too good. Um, Obviously Marner might be the odd man out, but he does have a no move. Will he waive it? Will he not? What do the Leafs do going forward as a Leafs fan?
I think step one is Sheldon Keefe has to go. Am I saying he's a bad coach? I don't think he's a terrible coach. I do think he will be a good coach one day. I think he might have been pushed into the role a little quickly. He didn't have an assistant role in the NHL. He didn't have any sort of role. He was just implemented as a head coach because of Kyle Dubas. Um, and I think it was a little quick. I think he'll move on and be a great coach, but I think he needed some experience, which he just got with the Leafs. So I think next team he'll be good. Um, another stuff I've been hearing is that the Leafs just don't want a president of hockey ops anymore. It does sound like Shanahan might be going as well. Um, they just don't need that role anymore. The GM can be that. And the next is Mitch Marner. I think Mitch Marner does get traded. I have heard some indications that he would waive his no trade clause if they can find the trade. Will the Leafs win the trade? Off a player to player perspective, probably not, but you're also getting rid of 11 million cap at the same time. So you have to look at what they get back plus $11 million in cap. Um, so I do think that will happen as well, which will open them up to some moves. Obviously, Domi's a free agent. I think we can both agree the Leafs and Domi both want to find a way to make this
I
work.
I
So
I don't he was great in the playoffs and in the regular season.
exactly.
He just screams Toronto Maple Leaf.
Yeah, and he wants to be there. That's huge. Connor Dewar, Nick
I thought he was
Robertson,
good. I
Noah
thought he was
Gregor.
good. I thought Connor Dewar was good in the series.
Yeah, they all played well. They're all RFAs. They're not going to command a lot of money. I think we can all agree. They'll all be back probably. TJ Brody definitely won't be back. I
Smell you
don't
later.
yeah. Timothy Liljegren, they'll find a way to get that done. Mark Giordano might retire.
He should. He's 41 and didn't
Yeah.
even play in the series.
I don't know what you think about Labushkin. I think they'll try.
I
I don't
I think I
think
as much as I don't think he's a fit beside Morgan Riley, I think he should find a place on this top six.
Agree. And then another person I think the Leafs will really try to get back. I don't know if they'll be able to, is Joel Edmondson. I think the
I
Leafs will
thought
try
Joe Edmondson was a great, he's
well,
that savvy veteran. He knows how to play in the playoffs. He knows how to play his role. I think he's a great bottom pairing defenseman veteran presence.
I agree. So the only person we have left to talk about is Tyler Bertuzzi. I think the Leafs are going to try hard for this. I don't think it's going to happen personally.
I think he's out of their price range unless they get off Marner's contract before he signs a contract elsewhere.
Which I think is going to be huge. But like if you remember last year, Tyler Bertuzzi was looking for a multi-year big time
Didn't get
contract, and
it.
he wasn't even thinking about the Leafs. And then he didn't get a multi-year contract, so he signed a 1 year with a competitive team he thought he could put a lot of points up with. I think he's going to be looking for that exact same deal this year. He's going to be looking for a multi-year big time deal. Like you said, Toronto just can't really afford that, but you never know with what happens to Marner. Obviously, you got Samsonov and Martin Jones. I think they're both gone.
I don't,
Um,
yeah, there's no reason to bring either of them back.
no, Martin Jones is just old, and he was always the third guy. Samsonov has flashes, but you just never feel comfortable with him in nets. I'm not saying he's a bad goalie. I think he has the potential to be a good goalie. I think he's just you're never comfortable when he's in nets. Um, I do think they want to roll with Wall, even though he is kind of injury prone. I don't think they'll be looking to sign a 1A goalie. I think they'll be looking to sign a 1B to kind of tandem.
If you can
What
get
do
a
you think?
competent 1B situation with Wall, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
Like
for sure. And
someone
the Leafs,
like a Bressois, like a maybe Kevin Lankin's a bit stretching. He's like a 1C. Um, maybe like an Alex Nedeljkovic who just had a good year in Pittsburgh. I wouldn't
yeah.
mind that situation if Toronto can get him for the right deal. Yeah, something like that. Someone that has been a starter in the past and um can get some volume.
Yeah, and there's something about the Leafs that we haven't been able to say in a while. Um you got about $4 million coming off the books with your goalies. You got 14 mil coming off the books with injury reserve. Klingberg, Matt Murray, and Jake Muzzin, all their contracts are up. You got $5 million in TJ Brody that's not coming back. You got 5.5 million in Tyler Bertuzzi that might not be coming back, and then you got $11 million in Mitch Marner that probably will get traded. So there's actually money on this roster, which we haven't been able to say for a very long time.
Yes, you have
So I
cap
think
space.
The Leafs are going to have an interesting summer. I think a lot of
I
good.
agree. So yeah, let's get into some series predictions. We'll start with the series that I've already sort of started. We'll go through those ones quick because you guys are watching this, these series could be over by now, could be 3 games in, could be 4 games in. The game that started 18 minutes ago. New York, Carolina.
Yeah, it was a fun game one, entertaining back and forth. Originally, and I'm gonna stick with originally. I'm going Carolina in seven. I think that still has a potential. You just got to win. They got to win tonight in New York to hopefully give that a chance.
Yeah, I had Carolina in 6. I will stick with that. As we said, we're going with original picks.
Yeah.
Do I think that's going to happen again? No. Do I think it goes 7? Yes. Do I still think Carolina can win? 100%.
Okay.
They had a bit of an off game. They got a bunch of guys that just can score, but the one thing that scares me is the blue line for the Rangers is tough. And, Florida. Carolina has a lot of forwards that don't like to take hits that are more skilled guys. So that's the one thing that scares me. But yeah, I'm gonna stick to Carolina in 6. Next series was last night. Florida and Boston. Boston won 5-1. My original pick was Florida in 6. Do I still think that will happen? Yes. I think this Florida team just sort of had that the bad thing of too much rest. And the Boston
Yeah.
team was still sort of riding the adrenaline from the Game 7 win.
Okay.
So I just think this Florida team is almost too good to not come away with the series. So I'm gonna stick Florida in 6.
I also had Florida in six. This went seven last year, but I think Florida got better, not in personnel because they stayed pretty similar, but in confidence, knowing they can do it after last year. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Boston got a little bit worse. So I do think Florida will still take this in six. Obviously, game two is huge.
Yep. Moving over to the west side. First game tonight between Dallas and Colorado. I am gonna go Dallas in 7. I think Dallas goes back to back rounds going 7. I just think this young team like we said, already talked about Wyatt Johnson, Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson's a bit quiet, Miro Heiskanen, Ottinger. If they can shut down Nathan McKinnon, I think those young guys can go to work. And like we said, we still didn't get much of like guys like Duchesne, who we didn't even mention. Sagan had his chance, just didn't score. And Joe Pavelski, if he gets going, I don't think that Colorado has enough depth to sort of keep up with the depth that the Dallas Stars have.
Yeah, we'll keep agreeing. Spoiler, like I had Dallas and Carolina in my Stanley Cup final prediction, so I'm gonna go
So did
Dallas.
I.
I'm gonna go six though. Did you? That's
I
funny.
did.
I'm gonna go Dallas in six though. I think um they they handled Stanley Cup the past Stanley Cup champions. They won four of their last five against them. And I don't even think they were playing at their full potential. And this is gonna be they'll have a lot more space against Colorado than they did against Vegas.
And the final series of what is the semifinal, quarterfinal,
Conference semis, but really
conference
conference.
semis, is Vancouver and Edmonton. Um, this one I'm gonna go Edmonton in five. However, I would not be shocked if Vancouver did pull up the upset victory over them. I know you guys are probably thinking, well, you're saying that they're only gonna win one game. Yeah, I know. I think that they struggled to score and get shots against a sort of boring Nashville team, and now they're going against McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman, and all probably the best power play in the playoffs so far. They looked unstoppable against the Kings. They just scare me, and I don't know. I know we were talking about she lost or whatever his name is. He might be the story. He could be a story. If he wins in the series, he will be the story of the playoffs. But I just
For sure.
don't see them. They struggled to get past Nashville. I don't see them getting past Edmonton.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Edmonton too, so we're going all four the same. I will actually go Edmonton in seven. I was actually thinking Edmonton in five until I like when I was watching the first round, until I saw how they competed against a Nashville team. They played pretty well defensively. I think like the goaltending doesn't even matter because Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl will score against any goalie, so the goaltender really doesn't matter for me on the other side. They're
Fair
gonna beat
enough.
them anyways. But I think just this style will work better for Vancouver. I think it's going to be a lot more open. It's going to be a lot more fast paced, which is the way Vancouver likes to play. It won't be as defensively oriented as Nashville was. So I think that works towards Vancouver. I still think Edmonton wins, but I think Vancouver will put up more of a fight than a lot of people think.
So yeah, there you have it. We got through that without before our time. If you guys
Pretty
enjoyed,
cool.
make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and we will be back next week with a new episode.
See ya.